While I was interviewing Eddie König, the CEO of EKWB, he said that Dan had been lying in his previous posts. Dan, how do you respond to what Eddie said?
Well, I'm not lying for a start, and it was quite shocking, really, to hear them words sort of come from Eddie.
So it's just a blanket, what you've said in your LinkedIn post, you stand by it 100%?
Yeah, yes, for sure. I have... the LinkedIn post was done involving sort of evidence. I was careful about it, and everything that was said in there, I have and provided evidence of.
And clearly you have sent information to GamersNexus, which was at least part of what they based their 2 videos on. Other people have clearly also spoken to GamersNexus. Is there anything significant in the GamersNexus videos that you consider to be incorrect? I'm not going to ask you to vouch for his work. However, the parts that relate to you, are they also... do they stand up now with hindsight?
Yes, they do. They do.
Now, funnily enough, I got something slightly wrong in my interview with Eddie König. In a sense, I invented a time machine. I was asking Eddie why they had sent a cease and desist or pair of cease and desist letters to Dan. The statement was that it related to Dan's post on LinkedIn in April, and those cease and desists appear to have arrived very rapidly with you after your post. I felt that possibly EK couldn't be that sensitive, and that maybe they'd got wind of GamersNexus doing research, because clearly it took GamersNexus some days after your post.
Yeah.
And maybe that they'd understood that you've been communicating or some such, and they didn't want you divulging company secrets. Very possibly I was incorrect. Perhaps I was giving EK too much credit. Do you think that the lawyers' letters that GamersNexus have shown literally relate to your LinkedIn post?
Yes, they do. The cease and desist letters that I received actually reference the LinkedIn post.
Certainly they do. I had kind of hoped there might be a little bit more to it than that, because that struck me as hurt feelings.
Yes.
And if that's all it was, that seemed a bit sad in a way. So literally your post, which you wrote nearly a month after you left EK, that is the basis, as GamersNexus said in their video.
Yeah, so to give some sort of clarity on the timeline, so my contract ended at the end of March.
Right.
I was awaiting payments, some for the month of March, some for prior to that.
Yep.
I gave them ample opportunity. I sent them numerous emails to say, listen, you have an opportunity to clear the financial owings. If not, then I will have to take action in some form.
Yeah.
I gave them a specific time for them to make the payments and make everything clear. The payments weren't made, so I stuck to my word and my plan as I put to them. At the time, I thought it was best, to sort of go public about it. I went public, and then I received, I think it was the same day, maybe 4 or 5 hours after making the post, that's when I received the cease and desist.
I noticed they're on the same date. Now, you've sent us copies of the 2 lawyers' letters, one from America, one from Slovenia. You've sent us a copy of the contract you had with EK, and also an NDA, so a total of 4 documents. I've had a read. I'm not a lawyer. I have a couple of views, but I have to say that the contract, which is 20 or something pages in length, appears to cover everything.
Yeah.
Let's start with a couple of bits of housekeeping.
Okay.
You're obviously British.
Yeah.
We previously, KitGuru had dealings with you when he worked at Overclockers over in Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah.
That was back in 2021, and then you went to work in a number of roles at EK. Have you been in the UK all that time, or have you actually lived in Slovenia? Have you visited Slovenia? You then worked for EK Cooling Solutions in America, different places in America. Did you live in America? Did you visit America, or are you a Brit in Britain?
So I never resided in the US or Slovenia. I did make lots and lots of trips. At one point, for Slovenia, I think it was maybe like 2, maybe 3 trips a year. For the US, however, at one point I was home for maybe a month, 2 months at the most, and then I'd be in San Antonio, where EKCS was based, for maybe 3 to 4 weeks at a time, and then back home, and then back out, and then also the US events as well, so covering PAX, Level Up Expo, all the events that they do.
Okay, and a couple of comments under our interview with König, which relate to the kind of the mechanics of invoicing, essentially saying, why does a guy who's employed have to send invoices? I get my pay in the bank each month. You are some form of contractor.
Correct, yeah. So I was a self-employed contractor. Anyone who works for EK that isn't in Slovenia, that's how it has worked. Right. From what I know, from being self-employed and trying to understand as best as I can the way taxation works, there's different tax sort of ramifications, I guess, for if you work in Slovenia, but you're from the UK, and I think there's some form of extra tax that has to be paid by a company that's based in a European country and their workers are in another country. So it just makes taxes easier, puts the onus more on the contractor and less on the company, but that's where you have to educate yourself.
So was your employment in a sense nice and straightforward in the first instance, as in each month we will pay you this amount of money, and up to the point where we think you're no good or we find someone better, and then you go, because of course being a freelancer, a contractor, the obligation is pretty much you're as good as your last gig. So was it straightforward, as in this much per month, provided we all see eye to eye, or was there a more complicated aspect to do with percentages, targets, and so on and so forth? So
under the sort of 3 roles that I worked in at EK, that tend to change contract by contract.
Right.
My initial contract when I started at the company as community and influencer manager for Fluid Gaming, it was a case of you get this flat rate, and there is targets of usually growth set targets for social media and working with influencers and stuff, and you will get a quarterly bonus for that.
Okay.
Then moving on to working as like an international accounts manager, it was on volume of sales, if how many components had gone through to certain resellers, onboarding new resellers and stuff like that. There is some trickery in which I consider trickery, from my opinion, in how the contracts are written. Like there is a clause in there that says your minimum hours are, say, 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
However, it does say in all of the contracts that EKWB is not to be your sole source of income, or you should not be completely reliant on EKWB as your source of income.
So how does that work? Okay,
right.
And that's because then you would, I imagine, slip from being a freelancer and a subcontractor to being more like a consultant. I think that would be there's a middle ground where it's like, these are your targets for a quarter or some such, go fly like a bird, and as long as you deliver it, we don't care how you deliver it, we don't care if someone else does it on your behalf, even as long as the goal is achieved. Okay, I take your point about the hours thing. So when it comes down to the specific claim in your LinkedIn post, I believe you said you're owed 4 months money.
Yes.
Which, as you wrote that in April, I'm guessing you mean March, February, January and December, or do you not mean that?
So this is where it gets kind of complicated.
Yes.
So my last contract, my second to last contract as accounts manager, I had there was a particular part of my contract that said that I got a percentage of all sales.
All sales for EKWB DOO or EK König Solutions or EK Japan or anything EK?
Well, so it was broken down into, at the time, what was classed as business units, which is a common term in large companies. And mine were for Fluid Gaming and Fluid Works, which was the enterprise side. I'm pretty sure in the contract it is referenced as enterprise. Okay,
is that of the Slovenian company, as opposed to EK König Solutions, which is America? As in, if EK in Europe sells a PC or a workstation, did you consider that some of that was owed to you?
No, so at the time, Enterprise and Consumer, which was Fluid Gaming, were only sold in the US.
Okay.
So naturally, I considered it as just for that region.
Okay, so but as that was the only thing, so therefore, if the EK entity sold a PC, whether it was, and those are the only two groups, there wasn't some third group like laptops, it was gaming PCs and workstation PCs, that came under your contract.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And therefore you are owed in your book a percentage.
Yes.
Okay. So
just to sort of finish off on the initial question, the actual financial owing comes from September last year, when I invoiced for that commission,
right,
as it is based in the contract.
Right.
I was declined that commission.
Right.
I think the reasoning was they did not see fit to pay me that commission,
right,
as reference from Matthias Kirch, who was the CEO
right,
at the time. I argued the case, found the next morning all my accounts locked.
Okay.
And then,
this is September of last year.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then had a very swift email from Matthias Kirch, basically saying, sign this new contract or your services are no longer required. And the new contract, there was a clause in there that foregoes any financial owings they have to me upon signing the new contract. So effectively, by signing the new contract, they don't owe me that commission anymore.
Okay, so you have a dispute dating back to September, which I guess in turn relates to the month of August or thereabouts, and you consider that unsatisfactory. Have you taken any further action upon that? I mean, clearly you might be right, you might be wrong, I have no idea. But have you put this, as the saying goes, in the hands of your lawyers, or have you written it off as hey-ho? Because you did sign a new contract, didn't you?
Yeah, so I signed a new contract for a number of reasons. I have a family, Christmas is coming up, just about to move house. Right. Kind of a more expensive living arrangement, okay. So I couldn't afford to lose my job in that sort of shorter time. So I signed a new contract. Upon signing the new contract, they actually paid me the commission that was owed, accidentally.
Oh?
Yes.
This is the face of Leo learning something new. Righty-ho.
I questioned it, and...
What?
Well, yeah.
As in, you didn't want them to grab it back at some point?
Yeah, I didn't want them... Say, everything went smoothly. Yeah. I then finished my contract and went, oh, by the way, you owe us X amount of thousands.
Okay.
So I questioned it. I was... what's the word? I was kind of prompted that, remember what happened last time you pushed for some money?
Yes.
You don't want that to happen again, do you?
Okay.
Yes.
So you think, in a sense, it was keeping you happy, albeit a little while after the fact, but we're not going to go there again?
Yes, I think so. I have to be careful with my wording.
No, please do. You have two cease and desists hanging over.
Yeah.
Okay. And as I say, this contract is 20 plus pages in length.
Right.
I'll come to a couple of points to that very shortly. But picking your words carefully.
Yeah, so I think it was more of a kind of a push to say, be careful what you're doing.
Okay.
If you understand kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yes. I'd love to put words in your mouth. It might be very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is more to it. Funnily enough, I was then told that this is not your commission payment, although it was the exact amount that I invoiced for.
And it was some peculiar sum, presumably.
Yes.
Okay.
This is an advanced payment of wages for the next 4 months, which actually, signing my new contract, the maths didn't work out because my new contract was for a little more than I was earning previously. And with that, they saw fit not to pay me for 4 months, which was...
Okay. This is my... I'm totally surprised. This is new information base. As a little bit of housekeeping, it is worth pointing out, as I mentioned, KitGuru had dealings with Dan Overclockers in 2021. My only communication, I believe I was in the same office when I visited Clockers one time. Until this morning, we've never spoken. I've made a point of not speaking to Dan. Alan, the boss of KitGuru, decided it was worth interviewing him. So therefore, we haven't prepared this, and this is my genuine, I'm really surprised face, in case you're wondering if I'm acting. I can't act. Okay, so the 4 months owing, you said in your post in April you owed money. Are we talking here then, having paid you, as it were, too much last year, you just didn't then get paid for 4 months?
Correct.
Have they... How can we put this? Is this a cash flow thing, as in it just didn't have the money, or did they tell you it's because you're not worth it? Or something else?
I think it's... I do think a bit of it could be a cash flow issue. Right. I think a large amount of it is some erroneous practices from the accounts and finance team. Right. And rather than admitting that, okay, we messed up, it's a sort of stay the course. We cannot be wrong on this matter.
So the 4 months would take you from September to October to November to December to January. Now, it so happens GamersNexus, part of his first video, he referenced that I'd sent him a message. Mm-hmm. This obviously being Steve Burke, GamersNexus, one and the same. My message, I checked back, simply says EKWB laying off people, ? That was my entire message, because I'd heard things weren't great. That's February, which it sounds like I was months after the fact. And then this is all blown up eventually. So you're in the UK, you're working for the Americans at this point.
Yeah, so at this point I'm actually contracted to EKCS. Right. Whereas previously I was contracted to headquarters, to EKWB Slovenian.
And you have this, does this explain why you have two cease and desists?
Yes.
Which simultaneously. Mm-hmm. I mean, the one from Slovenia, the other from America. The one from America referencing your contract, the one from Slovenia referencing your NDA. Mm-hmm. And I do have notes, and I hope to goodness I'm approximately correct here, because we don't upset the lawyers. So we have a change from EKWB DOO, which you signed 3rd of October 23, changing to EK Cooling Solutions, as you've already explained. Yeah. My reading of that, and a whole bunch of binding, I mean page after page of what you may or may not do, I get the impression that when you leave the company it ends. It doesn't seem to say, to my non-lawyerly reading, and for a period of time thereafter, or in perpetuity, which it could be. So your post on LinkedIn appears to clash with a clause that says you may, cited clause 22.1, that you may not essentially make public posts or advertisements or any such unless it's with the authority of the company. Now, my reading of that seemed to suggest, well, it's the contractor. Well, when you leave, you're not the contractor.
Right.
Now, I know you've spoken to lawyers. The other thing is, it didn't actually say posts about the company. It just said posts. The implication was, if you did anything publicly, if you used
I'm having a great day.
If you used Twitter X, in a sense, without getting approval from EKWB, you'd be in breach of thing. Right. I may have misread that, but have I got that at all correct? Or
I think I'm under a similar sort of understanding to you with it. Like, upon reading it, it's like, what? I don't understand what the contractor's trying to achieve in that vein. There's also the effect...
Contractor, you're the contractor.
Well, the contract itself is trying to achieve. Okay. There's also, I think that starts to limit speech a little bit, and I'm not kind of a fan of that.
Understood. However, again, because I do find it slightly extraordinary, the idea of American and Slovenian lawyers to a Brit in Britain, and you presume you have a British passport, and you don't have any foreign passports.
Nope.
So quite the jurisdiction, but also it's worth explaining to Americans, we don't have a constitution in this country. We're a monarchy. We have parliamentary history going back a long way. We don't have a constitution. We don't have any amendments to a constitution. Freedom of speech it legally is not a thing other than laws.
Mm-hmm.
We can't stand there and bash a constitution. So you may not be a fan of whatever, however you may be bound by whatever you've...
Yeah.
And even though you clearly consider you signed the EK Cooling Solutions contract under duress, and that may or may not have been a good move, but you did sign the contract.
Yes.
And then you stuck at the company for months, despite apparently not being paid.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I know, I think a question that I've seen a lot is that, why would you stick around if that's the case? I'd be out the door kind of thing. In the background at the time, there's lots and lots of ongoing conversations.
Okay. We'll come to that in 2 seconds. I'm going to stop the cameras and restart. We have a recording limit, and it's just the two of us in the room. We don't have a guy behind the cameras this time. I miss Dominic. Back in a second. You referenced conversations. Who did you work for at each of the stages in your about 3 years and 3 contracts in different roles at EK?
So my first 2 contracts, so the community and influencer manager for Fluid Gaming, that was to headquarters, EKWB Slovenia. My account manager role, that was to EKWB Slovenia. And then my final role, product manager / business development manager, was to EKCS, so the US side.
Right. So that's Kat Silverstein.
Yes.
Okay.
So the reason being is for the whole of 2023, so January, February time 23, the entire sort of mid to top level of management for Fluid Gaming was gone. It left.
Right.
And I was the only senior person, apart from Kat as CEO, operating on that side of the company. And I'm very much if I see something that needs doing, then just do it, rather than waiting for someone else to do it.
Okay.
So I kind of sort of accidentally took on a role of overseeing pretty much everything that was happening at the EKCS office, at the Fluid Gaming office in San Antonio. And then in September, some power changed hands internally between headquarters and Kat Silverstein.
Yeah.
And then Kat took kind of over that role from me, and I went into the kind of product management, product development, and business development.
Okay. Now there were EK Cooling Solutions had 15 staff, I believe, on the ground, and there's GamersNexus covered that the 40 hours a week and overtime and so on and so forth. And if a company has problems with American law and American employment, that's their problem, and we know the Americans will do as they see fit, particularly the foreign company. My interest in that, therefore, is to park that, because that's going to be dealt with by the correct people. I am, however, interested to know, and I don't know whether you can answer this, you got 15 people plus yourself, and Kat doing whatever Kat was doing as the boss, apparently not on site very often, but
Correct.
presumably doing something on behalf of EK Cooling Solutions. And yet the implication is the company wasn't making any money. So were these people, including yourself, in America, busy building PCs and shipping them to customers, or what were these people doing? And can you answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, we were working. We were building PCs. We were developing new products. We were working with partners. Myself, I'd be over there for a month at a time, let's say.
Oh, okay. Right.
And I'd be helping the guys out on the line with building PCs. I'd be helping with office management. I'd be going out and meeting potential partners, creating new leads, working events. I was doing sort of everything, really.
And this is while you're not being paid?
So no, this was 23. So actually,
Okay.
I'm being paid as an accounts manager for headquarters, but I'm kind of being borrowed to the US.
And throughout this time, Eddie König, who, as we've established in our interview, Eddie was the owner, has been the owner throughout the entire history of the company. However, the CEO, Kirch, a chap I don't believe I've ever met or seen anywhere, and so to me he's a shadowy person in the background. But you, while you're working for EK Cooling Solutions, are you dealing with Kirch?
Yes.
Okay, so Kat is your boss, and Kirch is the Uber boss.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Was there any conflict between the two of them over what you were all supposed to be doing, or was everyone happy with how things were going?
I think from the bottom up, so the guys that were working the line and doing the tech side and doing the general work, I saw it as sort of my job to kind of shield them from the upstairs politics. Right. That was my problem to deal with. A lot of it was, Matthias says this, Kat agrees, and we're doing that. Right. Albeit a lot of the time not fantastic ideas, but, you know, the boss says, and right. you do have to give your input and say, that might not be the best idea. Okay. However, a lot of the time it was still pushed and we still did as we were told, so to speak.
And then at some point, the Texas operation was shuttered.
Correct.
And the staff were given the push. It sounds like with some little bit of notice, but not quite as much as they might have expected. And then operations were subcontracted.
Yeah.
So you got 15 people plus you, plus I don't know how many others, plus Kat, so 17 at least, apparently all working flat out plus overtime, which may or may not have been paid, and yet the operation wasn't making money. How does that work?
So as already been explored with by Stephen in the GamersNexus video, and I believe Eddie touched on it in your interview about sort of borrowing money, loaning money, etc. to different parts of the business. It was very much a case of, as soon as a product was sold, any profit was very quickly taken away, and HQ would take that.
So do you feel this is the thing of a fish rots from the head down, that it was the problems were in Slovenia and the American operation was actually doing okay, however the money had to keep going back to base because they needed it,
yes.
and they're just peddling like crazy to try and keep things going?
Yes, I do think so, and I think that the US operation would have, if we'd have continually got the very small amount of resources that I was asking for, we would have done a lot better. If we were allowed to work under our own steam and move under our own steam, it would have been much more successful. If you look at the history of Fluid Gaming as a whole, its first few years was very successful. They were shifting a lot of systems. They had some great collaborations and partnerships, and subsequently, when they weren't managed correctly and when they went wrong, that's when things started to dip. I came in at around that time when things started to dip and start. Right, yeah.
I shouldn't laugh. It's very unfortunate.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. But you know, all you can do is work and work hard and try and achieve, you know, what you're there to achieve. And as such, you know, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to not rescue it, but the guys the team that I like to say I had in the US were very capable technicians, very hard-working guys, and you know they were a good group of people. So to see that kind of go down the drain is breaks my heart a little bit.
So if the American operation EKWB Solutions was going famously well, I don't know, would you know whether it was actually profitable, or would you simply know whether you're seeing activity and turnover? And if you did know the answer to that, would you be able to tell me?
I have to think about the context of that. Yeah. I think it could have been profitable if it was managed correctly from headquarters.
Okay.
Because all the time, even though it looks like it had its own structure, it had its own internal management and organisation, 90% of the time, marching orders were given from headquarters, and it was, you stick to this plan.
Okay.
There was times where you had to be a little bit creative with your ideas and the way you execute on the plan. But, you know, there was I was constantly pushing back with, this won't work because of this. The market is different here. The business culture is different here. You have to manage it this way, you have to manage it this way. And it was just a case of, no, this is the plan, this is how we're going to do it.
A question that you may or may not be able to answer. I've heard from a few people, Micro Center has come into a conversation.
Yeah.
Is this something you can discuss at all?
In some ways, yes.
Okay.
In
that case, because I don't believe GamersNexus has to date mentioned Micro Center at all, and Micro Center in the context of Europeans is someplace over in America.
Right.
So tell us about Micro Center and how EK's dealings with Micro Center to the extent that you can. EK Cooling Solutions dealings with Micro Center to the extent that you can.
The issue with the Micro Center sort of deal,
which was
or prospect or proposal, I guess,
which was worked on by whom?
That was Cat mainly. That was worked on by. I had some dealings here and there. Can you spec these systems? Can you give me ideas for this? X, Y, and Z. Was bureaucracy. That was the issue. It was just constant. Right. Spec these systems. So I'd spec the systems, pricing, everything, and a plan to execute on it. It would have to go back to HQ. Right. HQ would look at it. We don't like this. We don't like this. There's too much room here. We need more margin here. We need more this there. Right. So then you'd redo it. You'd send it back. No, we're going to do it. So they'd do it. It would come back. Well, this isn't going to work. There's no profit in it. And then it was just constant backwards and forwards and more talking than actual execution.
And the intent was for EK to sell built PCs, obviously loaded with EK hardware, through Micro Center, which is the American equivalent of Dixon's.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Approximately how many stores do they have across America?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. It's a lot. It's a lot of stores.
Right.
Yeah.
So therefore, it would have been a significant thing for EK.
It would have been. It was a huge opportunity, and it's indicative of not just EKCS, but there was gigantic opportunities that I was working on the Europe side. There was opportunities to work with an F1 team, we'll say. I worked on that for a very, very long time. It would have made us millions. It was a fantastic opportunity, and again, bureaucracy got in the way.
Millions of, and without wishing to be rude, but I mean, after all, we all have to pay a gas bill, of which you would have been on some sort of percentage.
Yeah, I would have got a percentage for it. That was most definitely a kind of driving force for me, is to earn more money. That's why I go to work.
Well, you said in your LinkedIn post. Sure, I mean, I'm not taking issue with it. I'm just clarifying. Your LinkedIn post after you did say, I have a part of this is a selfish interest.
Yes, of course.
So
I think. Yes, and I don't know if now is the right time to touch on the sort of morals and ethics, I guess, about what is happening with this whole sort of
if you like
scenario. But there is a selfish interest in there for me to get paid for the work that I did. But I think there's also I genuinely believe at my core that what I'm doing is the right thing to do. The industry in general has handed me a great deal of opportunities. It's changed my life somewhat, especially starting as a technician on minimum wage, building computers, and it's given me opportunities to go all over the world. And I feel that I owe it somewhat to the industry for young people coming into the industry to show them that you do have to stand your ground, you do have to stand up for yourself. I'm not saying the industry is a dirty place, but all industries have, sort of bad apples here and there, and I think it is upon the people that have been in the industry for a long time, that are now leaders in the industry, to do something about that.
And now you have two cease and desist hanging over you, one from America and one from Europe, so that covers a good part of the world. Each of them is threatening you, as per your contract, with $70,000 or euros in both cases.
One of them referencing potential jail time.
Yes, quite. In Slovenia.
Yeah.
Yes, quite.
And I know it's not something to laugh about, but that shouldn't. I don't think morally that should stop you from doing the right thing.
I have no advice to offer you on that one. I mean, quite clearly. Hide away in the part of the UK from which you come and tell no one where you are, possibly. as Eddie König said in the interview, we are a serious company, and he quite clearly did not retract those cease and desists, and he said that he had reached out to you a number of times. On the other hand, lawyers' letters be lawyers' letters, so you don't appear to be backing down, as you're here, and you continue to talk to GamersNexus. However, in terms of where you go from here, you've got cease and desist hanging over. You consider you are owed money. However, you are still working with in fact, I have a meeting booked with you at Computex.
Correct, yeah.
For your current employer, Antec.
Yeah.
Where do you go from here?
So in regards to Antec, I've had conversations with senior management there upon commencing this sort of I guess expedition, and they're aware of what I'm doing, and it's been a case of, you know, good luck. I hope you get, you know, the sort of the reparations you're looking for financially or whatever. I think all of that changed a lot from the interview you did with Eddie. Upon Eddie opening dialogue with calling me a liar, I think that changes a lot. Where do I go from here? I guess that's down to EK. It's down to I have this this week, actually. I think it was on Monday. Sent them an email saying, you know, where are we at? What's going on? Reference the invoices again. Said, you know, this can all kind of change if you pay what's owed.
Right.
That changed a lot when the KitGuru video of Eddie calling me a liar aired, and I've had zero response
From
EK. Yeah, I've been completely ghosted on any and all communication I've sent out since making that social media post.
You may or may not have an answer to this. Eddie was quite specific that their reach out email address that they put up after GamersNexus or after GamersNexus did their video, not after you did your LinkedIn post, to say, tell us if you've got any problems. Eddie was quite explicit. Nobody has contacted that email address. Has anybody said to you privately, well, I have? After all, you know a number of these members of staff, or do you know? Have they said I haven't bothered, or do you know anything about that at all?
No, I don't really know too much about that. I think the majority of people that from the GamersNexus videos that have come forward with their dealings with EK, whether it be as an employee, or, you know, a media outlet or whatever, I think they've actually gone through the GamersNexus channels.
Well, it felt that way to me as well.
Yeah.
It did seem somewhat extraordinary that even as a formality, if someone's got an actual gripe and they think they're owed money, at least put it on the record with EK. I don't know. Perhaps it will achieve nothing. It's entirely possible. Perhaps, but pixels are free.
Right.
I was just somewhat surprised. I'll reiterate, I didn't explicitly say this in the Eddie König video, but if you have contacted the reach out email address and have heard nothing, do please let us know. And if truly nobody has done that, I'm slightly surprised, but such is life. Do you have a feeling for where EK will go in future? I mean, do you think the company's doomed? Do you think they can pull through, or is it really not your problem anymore? You're more interested about Antec.
I think the latter is correct in some way. However, there is nothing I'd love more than to see EK sort of do the right thing and go, listen, guys, all right, we messed up a bit. We apologise. This is what we've done to fix it, and actually fix it, and, you know, carry on being sort of one of the kind of forefront companies of water cooling. That would be great. I'm not a bitter person. I'm like to think I'm quite reasonable. I don't think. No, I wouldn't like to see them disappear. I don't wish to burn it all to the ground, and I don't think that's a healthy way of thinking, really.
No, I mean, there is a part of me that suspects that if the cash flow problems that have clearly been around for many months, I mean, the fact you weren't paid for months on end and so on, there is a part of me that wonders whether EK will be, if it continues to suffer, will it actually just be acquired by, I mean, one particular company comes to mind based in California. In other words, the name and the products will continue, but perhaps not with the same people in charge.
I think from my knowledge of business and operating at a relatively high level inside EK, from a strategy perspective, I think the best thing to happen for them is to be acquired and carry on making products. But again, they have to change the culture internally in the company. And from what I've seen so far, I don't see it happening.
Okay. Do you feel that this is, in terms of videos and well, it's all video, the world is video, will there be more to come on EK? We are due to see you at Computex. We are also, KitGuru, currently expecting to see EK at Computex. I mean, who knows how that'll go, and Computex is very soon. Can we expect any more videos to drop between now and then, do you think?
Quite possibly. I think now, especially after this video, the ball is kind of in their court, really. Right. It's a game of tennis, isn't it? Somewhat.
Okay, so serve, waiting for return.
Yes.
Okay, so to wrap this up, we've been going for about 40 plus minutes, which is long enough for most people, I think. What would you say is the single biggest thing, if we take apart from I'm owed money? Is there a single thing? I appreciate the change, the culture, I get that, but that's a bit nebulous.
Yeah.
Unless you're literally saying Eddie König, appoint a decent CEO. I'm not sure who'd necessarily want to be CEO of EK these days. I mean, troubled company.
Be quite the challenge.
Indeed. Do you think, if you'd try and put your finger on a tangible thing, would that be the thing, or is there some other single thing?
I think ultimately it's do the right thing and serve your community well. EK have acquired a huge community, a great community of modders, people who love their products, people who love the industry. There's a lot of people in that company that are in EK and in this industry because they have a love for it. Do the right thing by all of them and come clean with everyone.
Dan Henderson, thank you very much.
Thank you.